Welcome to the Bank Marketing Show, the podcast that engages and informs you for success in today's marketplace. It's the show that will make you a better marketer with trends, tactics, and inspiration from experts and industry leaders. If you're wanting to impact your personal success and position your bank as the best choice in your market, you're in the right place. Now let's dive into today's show with your hosts, Chris and Dan.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Bank Marketing Show. We're excited to have you with us today. We've got another great guest lined up that is going to give us, I think, some great insightful information on relationship resources for you and some really useful takeaways. So we're glad to have you with us today. And Dan, how are you today, man?
I'm doing well.
Good. Well, welcome, Brent. We're glad to have you.
Great to be here.
All right.
Yeah. So Brent, Chris and I have both been working with you for a couple years now on our agency side. Brent Weaver runs a company called UGurus, which is an agency mastermind company devoted to kind of helping digital agencies grow. And I think your mission is to help 10,000 digital agency owners achieve freedom in their business and life. And that's definitely, I think Chris and I have definitely experienced that along the way. Just, figuring out how to run our agencies better with process and platform. And, I think you actually, a lot of the inspiration for this podcast comes from yours and comes from working with you. So we're super excited for you to be here.
Nice.
Yeah. Welcome to the show.
Be here.
You want to start, Brent, and give us a little more color on UGurus and what you kind of where your passions lie. And I know we're gonna get in today a little about your book, which is around niching. Just love your kind of 10,000 foot view on everything you're working on and where your perspective comes from.
Yeah, for sure. So and great to be here, guys. And it's so fun to see the partnership that you've created to create this content and make this available for the banking industry, and seeing what you're doing to really help deliver more value to your market. And that's like the ethos of what UGurus is all about. We help agencies, get more leads, get better clients, grow their business. And a lot of it just comes down to helping more people, like creating content, bringing your expertise into the market. And a lot of that mindset came from us running my first agency in maybe the wrong way for 7 or 8 years and not really getting the results that we thought were possible. We didn't really have any marketing. We weren't getting ideal clients. We were just kind of working with random referrals, word of mouth. And sometimes those would be great clients. Sometimes they would be not so great clients. And we really had no control or autonomy kind of over our business. We had no predictability. And so we had to figure out a different way to do that. And I kind of went on this personal journey and this business quest to learn from other experts, other marketers. And this is back in like the mid 2000s. So like the amount of content available to help you grow your business online, like there was some stuff, but it's like breadcrumbs, right? And so we were hiring a lot of consultants, a lot of other folks, joining a lot of groups to try to learn how to run a successful agency. And we started figuring it out. And I kind of thought when we actually sold that business 5 or 6 years later, and I thought about, what would be the business I wish existed when I had started my agency? What would have helped me get to a successful business faster? And so, a lot of the people that were great mentors of mine or, provided us great, systems or frameworks, we basically created a company to bring that kind of service to our market. And really haven't looked back. It's been a crazy journey. We started UGurus in 2012. Very humble beginnings. We had no real products or services, but we had good ideas and we had a lot of experience helping agencies in kind of like pockets of helping them grow their business. And so, the last 10 years has been a journey, and we've now helped thousands of agency owners with a variety of things around, attracting more leads and increasing their prices, which, maybe the bank clients are excited about, maybe not. But it all comes back to this idea of like delivering more value to the businesses and the clients we were working with. And I think I'm sure as bankers, right, they can, this audience could probably relate to that. It's like, how do you make more money? Well, it's like, you just deliver more value, right? Solve more problems for people. And that's really what it's all about. Last year, we were actually acquired by a much bigger company And so that's been really cool for a variety of reasons. It's fun to have an acquisition for this business as well. But it's also great because the businesses that acquired us are like, they have really, really big audiences of our ideal customer. And so we get to play in an even bigger game. And that's been super fun as well. So yeah, I'm sure there's lots more to my story than that, but that's kind of the, I would say elevator pitch, but maybe that's like the elevator pitch in a pretty long elevator ride. Maybe that was like the Empire State Building elevator pitch of UGurus, my backstory.
Yeah. Well, I think that actually sets up really well because, what our listeners, if they're pausing, Brent, and kind of going, well, what does this have to do with me as a bank marketer? I think you set that up well because part of the backdrop of what you discussed is finding the right partnership and finding a fit, because with your agency, you didn't have that to reach out to. Therefore, you were resource dry and, it didn't have that. So when you went that direction and became this resource, this guidepost, this, all these things to the agency world, that is identically reflective of what Dan with his agency and me with my agency and what we're doing with bank marketers. So let's dive into that a little bit, because it's, it'd be great if every one of our bank clients, mine are primarily in the southeastern U.S. and Dan's are kind of Mideast and up and all over the place as well. Is of course what everybody wants to do is flip open the yellow pages and find an agency, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that how we do it these days, Dan?
Yeah, just the 2-inch thick yellow pages. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that still a thing? Is that, do we
I was
the yellow
kidding.
pages?
So, yeah. I was kidding. So everybody, all of us on screen here are all digital marketing, experts. So it's kind of funny to throw in there. So Brent, as a bank marketer, and I'm sitting here and I know that I need help. I need expertise in digital ad platform placement. I can't do my own SEO, on and on, need to grow the brand, need to do all of this. And I'm like, okay, I got to find somebody. So maybe I go through my state banking association and find Dan's group or mine, or maybe I do whatever. But how do I find the right partner, the right agency partner?
Yeah. I mean, I think the I guess knowing agencies more on the sell side, right, is agencies usually have kind of a strength of some kind, something that they're good at. Maybe it's the niche that they're good at. Maybe it's a channel that they're good at. I think it probably makes the most sense, though, before you start to Google for digital marketing agency, is just getting clear on like what success looks like for you. So just taking a step back and saying, what are we trying to accomplish here? Are we trying to, get more account holders? Are we trying to, get active in our community? Are we trying to market to our existing account holders? Are we trying to, find a certain type of customer? And so I think just if you can get really, really clear on like your goals and objectives, and also even just provide some type of documentation on, what are the things you're currently doing? What have you tried in the past? And really just kind of map out, what success looks like. Because, people will say things like, well, yeah, we tried that whole, Facebook thing or whatever. It just didn't work for us. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Right? Like, you tried what Facebook thing, right? Or, hey, yeah, we spent a lot of money on a web design company and it didn't really get us anything. It's like, well, not all web agencies are the same thing. Not all websites are the same thing, and so there's a lot of nuance when it comes to marketing. There's a lot of things that, maybe one day that strategy doesn't, work very well because it was implemented a certain way. And then for the next company, it works amazingly. Right. And so I think the more context you can provide to an agency that you're bringing on about your situation, about what you've tried, about what your goals and success metrics are, I think the more effective you're going to be in finding a great partnership and in working with that partnership. And the other thing I would say, and we can talk about some ways to go looking for agencies, but it's also, once you start engaging with an agency, you have to realize that every agency has their approach to signing on clients and things like that. And sometimes there's this desire that, as a client, you're the one with the money, that you want to, kind of control the frame of the process. And, that can be really counterproductive because most agencies might have their own process that they want to engage you with in terms of how they do research or how they do an audit or how they kind of move through that selling process. And so it's great to have a buying process, to define that as a bank. Hey, these are the 5 steps that we're going to go through as a bank to find our next agency, and make that available to your agencies that you're looking to get proposals from, but also being willing to work within their processes, because for them to, if it's like a fight for them to get like a meeting with you or get like some discovery information, I mean, it's just going to make them less effective. So I think if this is really a problem that you're trying to solve, be really clear on those goals and objectives, and also be allocating time to the process as well. Mostly this type of stuff that you're trying to solve is not going to be a quick solution. It's not like, oh, hey, there's an easy button. Like, let's just quadruple our account holders or whatever, and like, we're good, right? Like, it's going to take time and energy. So make sure you're allocating that as well.
We've definitely had banks we start talking to that say exactly what you said. We tried the Facebook thing and didn't work. We just want an agency to run Facebook for us. And as an agency owner, I'm like, I don't want to just run Facebook for it, because you're gonna give us some money and we're gonna waste it because we don't know your goals. We don't know what you're trying to do on Facebook, and whether you should be on Facebook at all, or whether another tactic is there. So to your point, we always try to kind of take it back to our process, and we always want to learn as much as we can about the bank first. So I think if you're talking to an agency that's not doing that and saying, great, like, let's start up a Facebook ad, you got to kind of question if that's the right path, right? If it didn't work for you, do you really know why? And is it just going to work with somebody else that just dives in, or is there some other way to do it?
And Dan and I have both gotten those phone calls too from a rural bank CEO or a bank marketing director or whatever the case may be. And so how much is your SEO? Well,
how long is a piece of string, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's like, so how much is a truck?
Right.
We're all over the map. Yeah. So look, tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take you through this discovery process. We're going to do this and evaluate what you need and your goal sets and all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to come up with a plan and include it in that as a scope of work, that we'll put a fee set to and see if that works for you. So
the question is more, should I spend $0 a month on SEO, or should I spend $5,000 a month on SEO or more? But it depends on why you're wanting to spend the money in the first place and what the problem is.
And I think too, like for banks or really any market, as you're thinking about agencies, I mean, agencies, if we kind of level up to like why do agencies exist typically? And it's, if you look at, digital marketing as an example, there's a lot of different technical skill sets required to run successful digital marketing campaigns. Now, if you go into a typical bank, I obviously have a bank account and all that kind of stuff, but like, I don't imagine a lot of like small community banks and regional banks, right, have like very large marketing departments. Maybe they have a couple of people, on those teams, but it's not like they have like, a head of web and a head of paid media and a head of content, a head of community and a head of affiliates and a head of, social media and a head of, blogging or what, it's like they don't have, this like $4 million marketing budget that they're splitting up amongst a team of like 43 professionals, right? Like maybe they have, a couple people that are kind of working in the marketing team. And so when you engage an agency, it's an alternative to you building that capability in-house. And so if you think about it, like you can go to a digital marketing agency and for the cost of like one, not even senior level team member, maybe like a manager level team member, like one 6-figure a year salary, $100K a year, you could probably get an agency to come in and help you with, a few different channels, right? Where it's not just like, hey, I'm one person that you're going to hire and bring them in, but you can hire a team that maybe is comprised of like, an agency principal, there's a project manager, there's a head of digital, maybe there's an account manager, maybe you have an SEO person, a paid traffic person, right? And so you get this like fractional resource of a bunch of really different talented and amazing people. And the way you make that work is the agency has a bunch of clients and they kind of manage that workload across, a bunch of different clients with a lot of headcount. So for the cost of like one team member, you actually get the benefit of 5 or 6 or 7 different expertise. And so, that allows a bank to engage on these digital strategies in a way that is a lot more cost effective, that they can actually go out and run really robust campaigns without having to hire that staff in-house. Now, if we look at you hire 10 agencies for the same rate to do the same job, and you probably will get 10 very different outcomes. It's not it's not a commodity. It's a service type of engagement. Who you're hiring is an important factor in the types of results that you're going to get. If you're hiring somebody who has gotten these results in the past for your type of business, there's probably a really strong likelihood that they're going to get those types of results in the future. If I go out there and hire a random SEO agency that's never worked for a bank before, and I say, hey, do SEO for me, right? For $3,000 a month or whatever, will you get the results that you're looking for? Who knows, right? It doesn't mean that SEO doesn't work. Maybe it doesn't even mean that SEO doesn't work, right? Maybe it means that your approach to SEO or the strategies that you brought to the agency weren't very good. And so I think that, one mindset that I would definitely keep with you when you're going through this process as a bank is that, just because one agency didn't get you results doesn't mean that the next one's not, And I'm sure you guys have had clients before that said, oh, we tried SEO and it didn't work, right? It's like, well, okay, you tried SEO with one company, but what's the market opportunity here? If we do some research and we determine that, hey, such and such term has 100,000, annual searches, maybe the upside is worth trying again, right? Maybe it's worth trying 10 times to find somebody that's going to find you that opportunity.
Well, if you go to an SEO agency, they're going to recommend SEO, but
they will probably be a hammer that sees nails. Absolutely.
Yeah. But as for small community banks, you may have a lot of brand awareness, and if you're the only bank in town, you might not need SEO. So it's also looking at that bigger picture, and or I guess in the bigger picture it might be, well, maybe SEO would help, but these other things would help more, and you have a limited budget, and so that there's also a difference, I think, between because like you said earlier, Brent, that there's agencies that specialize in SEO or specialize in Facebook or one single thing versus an agency that is a kind of marketing strategy agency that can do a little bit of everything. And those agencies will give you a different perspective than the, single service.
Yeah, I think that comes back to just, taking the time to unpack what you're looking for. And I realize that probably slows things down. I always, imagine, what were the leading activities that led to somebody reaching out to our agency? And, sometimes it's, people are on, these days, back then it was like conferences, right? Somebody be, 5 people at a business would be in a conference room, and, somebody pulls up the website and they're like, oh gosh, our website is atrocious. God, could somebody please just take care of this? Right. And somebody's like, oh, I don't know, who should take care of it? They're like, oh, let's have Samantha. She's the office manager. Like, oh, can you fix the website? Right. And, and Samantha goes off and, Googles and, builds a list of 25 different agencies, and she calls all of them and says, hey, can I get a proposal? And, here you have these agencies going, a proposal for what? Like, oh, new website. And some people are like, oh yeah, sure. It'd be like 3K or whatever, or 5K or 50K or whatever, and then the people that have been around for a while might be like, hey, well, we need to know what the heck you need to do. And then of course, Samantha's like, well, we needed to be better, right? Because we were in a meeting and somebody said, go get a website, right? And so it's trying to separate yourself from that type of a workflow and say, if that did come up in a meeting and somebody said, hey, our website's affecting our ability to get new account holders in our bank, or hey, we're not advertising right now. Are we missing out on something? Maybe, I don't know, right? Or hey, we aren't doing really well when it comes to SEO. Is that something that we should look at? And I think, asking a lot of those questions, digging deeper a little bit, really getting clear on what the heck you're trying to solve in terms of a problem, and then also being open to the agency's insights, right? I imagine if I were to go to one of you guys' agencies, you'd probably do quite a lot of discovery ahead of time to figure out, where are the opportunities at? Is it with SEO? Is it with paid media? Is it with social media? And that agency, at the end of the day, it's just one perspective, and it's okay to get a couple of perspectives as you're looking for the right fit for your business. But I think just making sure that you're engaging in a process, you're doing some due diligence, and you're approaching it with some level of structure to make sure getting the result you want.
And our agency has gotten to the point too, Brent, that if a potential client is not willing to engage in that process and that conversation, then we're probably not the best fit for them. And I don't want to engage in a new client relationship that we haven't been able to discuss, Dan, as you said, goal sets and all that, but even expectations and processes. And so if we're going to do social media management for you, here's what that looks like, here's what that platform is, but we're going to start first with we want to do social. Okay, well, so why? Well, for most of our clients, in order to compete with regional and national banks, these are community banks, so they want to fully engage in their community. Well, what better opportunity for local engagement and conversation than social media? So, but what are your goals from that? What's your ad spend tolerance? What's your, all of these things, and having those conversations, and then what are your expected outcomes? Because if we aren't able to do that as an agency, then at some point we're going to get down the road, Brent, and it's either 6 months or 2 years or something, and our expectations and yours diverged significantly, and it doesn't play well, right? And I know you've seen enough of that in your expertise over the years.
Well, I like to any good relationship, especially when you're talking about people, right? I mean, if it's like, man, this business would be so much easier if it wasn't for those customers. And I'm sure that, banks can feel that as well a little bit, but being able to have that kind of intentionality behind your business, I think is huge.
Yeah. Well, Brent, one of the things, and Dan, you mentioned this, when we opened also is your book. And this is very much fitting with your platform and your book, Getting Rich in the Deep End, which, I've got hard end digital copies and all of that. And let me set this up for you this way. One of my favorite quotes or points that you make in the book is asking the question, would you rather be a neurosurgeon or I guess a family practitioner, right? A general physician? Which one makes more money? Which one, and kind of you go the full extent of that story. That's one of the ones that really caught me in your book. So talk about that a little bit as far as even a conversation with a bank marketer that is all things to all people. We do loans, we do deposit accounts, we do, I've heard it said in our industry that we all sell money.
Yeah. What's the neurosurgery of banking? I guess that'd be my first question.
Well, so let me give you an example. So I drove just a few weeks ago and was in a client's office over in Alabama, and with a great bank client of ours that we do multiple services for and all of that. And they wanted to really be in growth mode for the coming year. Okay. So my conversation with them that was fitting with this, Brent, was what is it that you do best and do well? What does your community most need, and where are the opportunities and all that? And the long story short was they were like, well, loans for us on mobile homes, okay, is good revenue. It's a high demand. We have, and on and on and on. So the conversation went way that direction. So, man, I bit into that. And okay, so we integrate that into their coming year strategy. And that touches on, and we looked at SEO, and there's a lot of traffic, but not much competition. Whoa. So there we are, so we keep going down that road. So now we're expanding content, we're touching social, we're doing digital ads, targeted digital ads, we're doing SEO, we're doing all these things. And brother, I hate to brag on us, but they're killing it. And so why? Maybe that's not neurosurgery, Brent, but boy, man, we found a sweet spot. And they want to go. So does that, and I think that's it. And Dan, you and I have talked about it. Sometimes it's agriculture loans. Sometimes it's small businesses. Sometimes it's whatever. But don't you think it's around finding what that is rather than, hey, we do checking accounts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that you can do some of those broad things. Like, I mean, again, I'm not like you guys are the bank marketing experts today. But I think you can do things that are broad if you truly do them better than anybody else within your category. I mean, I think I would look at things like, Zappos and customer service, right? I mean, selling shoes is not like a super innovative thing. I mean, they were selling shoes on the internet, but they did something innovative with something that was like really, really broad, and they did customer service better than anybody else, right? There's like a story of, Tony Hsieh where they were out at some conference or whatever, and they needed to order a pizza at 2:00 in the morning, and nobody could find an open pizza joint. So they called Zappos. Like Tony Hsieh, like the founder of Zappos, like called Zappos and had them like Google, like on the phone with them and find like a pizza place for them in like New York or something like that, right? And so like literally they called Zappos customer support, which is a company that sells shoes, and they got like directions on how to order pizza in New York at 2:00 in the morning. And that's an example of like extraordinary customer service. So I think you could do something broad like checking accounts if somehow you made checking accounts like the thing that was better than everybody else. But if that's not possible for you, then I think you need to look at specialization. You need to look at, where can you create unfair advantage for your business? Is that in a category? Is that in a market? If you looked at, I don't know much about mobile home loans, but I imagine that if I got to a page of a website, or even if I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw an ad that said, get a new loan for X percent, and or I saw an ad that said, instant approval with 3% APR on mobile home loans, and I was in the market for that, and we knew through some type of indicator that I had expressed interest into a mobile home, that ad would catch my attention. Like I literally might just scroll past a loan ad and not think twice about it. Or I might have, might see a HELOC ad, or I might see a home mortgage ad or whatever. And it just might like scroll past. But all of a sudden you offer me something that's very personalized and specific to my situation. And if you really know that, right? If I clicked on that ad, or if that ad had some type of some type of content that really attracted me as a customer that said, hey, this person like knows about mobile homes, right? Maybe they, are name dropping brands. Maybe they're talking about how maybe the process to buying a mobile home is really frustrating. Like, I don't know, right? I mean, I'm not really sure. I've never done that myself. But if I had experienced something within that category and the bank knew that process really well, and it was very clear that they had some type of specialization in this market for this type of service, that's going to build that know, like, and trust factor instantly. And so in my book, we talk a lot about that, of like knowing who your customer is, knowing what they go to sleep at night thinking about, knowing what they wake up in the middle of the night stressed out about, and then we can leverage that information to serve them better. And so I think as a bank, if you're struggling with finding your inroads someplace, right? You're not hitting your goals. You're not really resonating with your target audience. Then you might need to start looking at, opportunities to specialize. Doesn't mean your bank, rebrands the bank as, we only do RV loans or whatever, mobile home loans. But maybe there's an opportunity there to create a segment, right? Maybe there's like a business unit there that you're able to create within your bank. And so I think that the more you get to know your target customer, you can kind of reverse engineer some of that specialization opportunity.
How do you think about, or how do you help agencies? I kind of know the answer to this, but I'd love to hear you kind of pontificate on it. Just how do you help agencies think about what niche to sort of pursue and to kind of go after? And I think it's a similar thought process for banks. Like you do mobile home loans, or you know that you are able to approve them faster than the bank down the street, or but it might not occur to you just living that life day to day that that's a thing. Chris and I talk to our banks, and we know it when we hear it. We're like, that's what you should go after, but the bank might not do that because it's kind of the status quo for them. And I know that I know I went through a similar thing, niching my agency into banks. But I'm curious your process for getting people to think.
Yeah, I think you've got your. We do it a little differently for agencies because it's a service business, and I think there's definitely a service component to banking. but it's not like 100% of the revenue is driven from, service. I mean, I assume people have, there's investment vehicles and all sorts of stuff that people, purchase maybe without ever even talking to somebody. The things that I would probably look at though are, kind of auditing what you currently have, right? Looking for opportunities in what you're already doing really well. You could do that through a basic like SWOT analysis of looking at your strengths, your weaknesses, kind of opportunities and threats, and getting that information from as many people in your bank as possible. Like different stakeholders have different opinions on what they see as strengths and opportunities and weaknesses. And so if I'm a bank manager or whatever, and I'm back in my office and I'm not interfacing with a lot of customers, I might be missing opportunities there. And so I would definitely survey and try to get as many of your current stakeholders to give you insights on that, and then back it up with data, right? Like look at what's actually driving revenues, what's driving profits, and see if you can identify something that you're already sitting on. Because if you already are successful in it, success begets success. So if you can double down on those strengths and turn them into like true superpowers, that's going to be a lot faster than somebody coming up with a harebrained idea that's not proven, that has no proof of concept in the bank, and be like, oh, hey, we should make money on, financing lacrosse uniforms. And everybody's like, what are they talking? It's like, who knows, right? I'm just like making stuff up, but it's like something that's totally random that the bank doesn't currently do might be a lot riskier than looking at something that's already kind of under the hood. And then in terms of research, I mean, looking at the market opportunity, you guys probably have great tools at your disposal that banks maybe don't have in terms of SEO and advertising research, and trying to identify what's the total addressable market of this thing that we're talking about, what's the potential service addressable market, are there other competitors that already are targeting this area, and I would look at that as a positive, right? I mean, we don't have so many competitors that it's like a red ocean. But then also no competitors could also be like a canary of sorts, right? Like, oh, hey, is this actually not a thing? Is this even a market? Because markets, I think, typically self-organize. They're, groups of people. They're, people that have an identity around something. Maybe it's like, hey, I'm, maybe like mobile home buyers are kind of an audience, right? Maybe, automotive, not necessarily people taking out automotive loans, because that's just like everybody, right? That has to buy a car, but maybe like auto dealers, right? Are a potential audience. And so it's like, how can you start to look at those audiences that already exist and see if there's something else that you can leverage? If there is huge search traffic that's really low competition, that's a potential audience. Are there some easy, quick wins that you could do to target that audience through paid traffic, through SEO? And see if you can kind of tap into those things. And then, once you find something that works, start to double down on that. And that's probably the other thing that I see agencies make the mistake of a lot of times, is they find some success in an area and they think, oh, great, I'm really successful at going out and finding successful things. And so they go and they keep trying to like add more things versus like tripling down on the thing that's working. Hey, could we, become the best, mobile home loan bank in our metropolitan area? Could we become the best mobile home lender in all of the states? Could we start creating cross-state, joint ventures and strategic partnerships and start becoming, the best mobile home lender in the country, right? And it's like, how far up can you kind of push that thing, which may or may not make sense for a community-led bank, but it's like, how can you start to grow something into like a 10x successful thing versus just going, oh, hey, we did that mobile home thing. Now let's go to, cars, or let's go to scooters, or let's go to, hobbies or whatever, right? And I think that's a kind of that fallacy, or I think there's some kind of bias, confirmation bias, right? You like do something well and it like confirms that you're really good at going out and finding new ideas, but really that one thing ended up being really good.
And don't you think that's crucial for a community bank that may be $700 million in assets and they've got 8 branches in 5 different communities and all of that, but every one of those that Dan and I work with are trying so hard to compete with fintechs and with Wells Fargo and Chase and Bank of America. And how do you do that? Well, you're not going to go head to head. Or if you try, you're going to, you're going to outspend yourself. You're going to, end up in a ditch. So
and Bank of America does mobile home loans, but they don't they aren't necessarily in your community advertising them.
That's
But they're
right.
not, Brent had a good example earlier of like what the actual, talking about that actual ad, and Bank of America's out there spending, hundreds of millions of dollars on loans, and we have the best rates and good customer service. But if you're in your market, saying in this little town in, outside of St. Louis, if you live in this mobile home park, we can approve you quickly. We can give you better rates. We can give you better customer service. If that ad's in front of them, that's gonna, Bank of America, the big guys aren't competing on that level.
And if you look at, I love this topic of specialization. Probably could nerd out on this for too long for our audience, but like what a lot of times when you look at like what specialization is, it's like taking multiple concepts and kind of putting them together, right? So if we said, okay, how many banks are great at lending? I mean, I'm sure there's lots, right? It's like, well, how many banks are great at lending and understand, mobile homes? Well, that just probably thinned the playing field, right? It's like, well, how many banks are, great at lending, know mobile homes really well, are hyper local focused, right? Now we just thinned out the opportunity quite a bit, right? And maybe it's like, hey, how many, you add another layer to that of like, obsessed with customer service. And now we have like maybe a competitive field of, less than, 2 or 3. And so that really becomes that process of creating an unfair advantage is just adding some different criteria for the things that you're going to specialize on. And then that creates that like, much thinner playing field. And so like, for our business out there, there's lots of business coaches. How many business coaches are focused on agencies? Like, oh, well, we just got rid of 98% of the market, right? There's like thousands of business coaches, but how many are focused on digital agencies? Well, maybe there's a couple dozen, which is still a lot. But now if we add in like 1 or 2 other factors there, we can start to become like, essentially a business of one where there's really no other competition that's doing the same thing that we're doing. Now, the trade-off of that is, you can't be everything to everybody. So you might have to say no to some other opportunities. And that's just the reality, I think, of life.
And really hard to do. And especially when you have the whole C-suite breathing down your neck going, hey, we got to grow revenue this year. We got to, and you want to grasp at every opportunity rather than turn and look at them and say, okay, so here's what we need to do. Here's how we need to specialize, or here's what we, and ultimately it will increase the type and target of engagement that we're trying to get at. So very well said. Well, cool. Yeah, and you do geek out on specialization, and I think that's a great thing because it's not discussed enough. It's more the how-to of going to do banking, and Dan and I both attend so many of these conferences and things, and there's kind of that repetitive theme, Brent, of what what's out there and how to do checking accounts well, rather than having and it takes an element of bravery, does it not? And faith, if you will, to do that, and then the research and data that you mentioned to go with it. That's really going to put a backbone around. Hey, we're diving deep into small banks.
And you got to jump. You got to dive into the deep end before you're jumping off before you really know how good it is down there, right?
Yeah.
You have to have that faith, like you're saying, to go there, right? Like you go to a chamber of commerce loan officer, you go to a chamber of commerce meeting and make some good connections and probably find some loans, but they're all over the place. Versus specializing might take a while for that brand message to get out there, build. But once it does, you're in it.
Yeah, and two, like and you guys might find this is that once not every campaign, not every strategy is successful. But we can actually get, in judging yourself whether you're successful with every campaign that you run as a bank or as a bank marketer might not even be the best measure of success. Because, if when it comes to this type of business growth, we don't need every campaign to be successful. We could be successful with 1 out of every like 4 campaigns. But if it was like wildly successful, it's going to kind of like pay for all of the other campaigns, right? Because there's really no like limit to how successful we can be within a market, right? I mean, obviously there's like the total addressable market. But if you think of it like, we're going to try to specialize our business. We're committed to this idea of becoming known for something. And it's entirely possible the first 3 or 4 things that you try will be unsuccessful. It doesn't mean that specialization is not a successful strategy. It just might mean that your implementation or that specific idea is not gaining traction. And we hear this all the time with agencies where they'll say, oh, well, yeah, I tried that niching thing. It didn't work for me. So I'm never going to do it again. Right. And I liken that to, somebody that goes out to eat at a restaurant, has a bad meal, and then it's just like, screw it.
I'm never eating Mexican again.
I'm never going out to eat again, right? I had a bad meal, right? Like, and of course I say that and people are like, well, obviously that's probably, I would never do that if I just try a different restaurant. And it's the same kind of idea as you are engaging through this process. We can have all the data in the world. We can have all the best strategists in the world. And sometimes we're just going to make bets that just don't hold up. But if we can get really good at the process of placing those bets and trying new things, then you might end up being that next, community bank that has an incredible growth year. Maybe you even become one of those fintech companies, or create some type of point of differentiation. Myself personally, I've had a lot of my own banks that we've worked with, like our businesses worked with, have gotten like gobbled up by bigger and bigger banks. I don't even know, I know the name of my bank, but I don't know, I guess they've gotten gobbled up like 7 or 8 times and are part of now some megacorp. And nobody has ever really called me, right? And just been like, hey, what's up? And somebody called me this week and I was like, hey, and they're like, hey, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a person here. You just literally called me and now it's a point of differentiation. And so I think those small community banks, I mean, that should be a part of the unfair advantage, paradigm as how can you be engaged locally? How can you get to know your customers, get to know the types of things they're looking for, and making sure that's a part of your specialization strategy, because it's probably something that's in those conference rooms a lot, is how do we beat these huge mega banks, right? Yeah. And I can tell you as a customer, first step is just, hey, give us a call and say what's up. And that's already probably a competitive advantage.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned trying something new is how you kind of find your niche, have success in it. But trying something new is often really hard for community bank that's been doing things the same way for a long time. So that's there's some cultural stuff in there. There's experimentation is not a natural thing for banks, but it can be on the marketing side. You're not you said this earlier, you're not rebranding the bank, you're not firing all the staff and hiring new staff. You're looking at something you're already good at and testing some different marketing messages, testing some different platforms. I think it's to kind of sum all that stuff up in the bank marketer term, it's playing off of your strengths and working on the messaging, working on the platform is a lot of what we're talking about here. So it's easier to go down that path than you think, but you need to have the focus on it. You need to have kind of some of that confidence to take the step off the edge.
Brent, we knew that conversation with you today was going to be valuable to our marketing audience, even though your niche and expertise is working with agencies. Listening to all of this for a while here has, I think, made great sense for our marketing audience and has really given some valuable nuggets around, obviously, around specialization and, really how to form the right relationship first. And then the importance of that specialization. And this has been really great stuff. So I can't thank you enough for sharing your experience and wisdom in it.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Absolutely. If you got just a minute, we like to run our guests through a quick lightning round and kind of see what your thoughts are.
All right, let's do it. Do I need to stretch first? Do I need to do anything special? Is there anything that we need any table stakes here?
You need to be doing push-ups the entire lightning round. No.
Yeah.
That might make for weird audio, but we can do it. Just messing.
That's right. So we're going to peel back the onion that is Brent Weaver. How about that?
Let's do it.
All right. So Brent, give us, can you share a personal best, a business best with us?
Yeah, sure. So personal best, I would say is my sons have been playing soccer. That's been like a new thing for us as a family. We've got 2 young boys. And so it's just been fun to go out and watch them once a week, go out and play. Full disclosure, getting them to soccer is still a work in progress. That's not a perfect science by a long shot, but
we can relate, brother.
Yeah. This is the worst thing ever. And I'm like, no. And then they're out there playing and they're having so much fun. And I'm like, was it really the worst thing ever? So, and business best, we had a record January, I think just looking at a lot of people saying things like, macro climate, this and that. And there's definitely some impact out there, but we've been working our tails off and we just have thought about, how do we make this an opportunity? And so we ended up having, really strong January, best January we've ever had as a business. And so just really cool.
Love it. So Brent, what is your favorite book or other resource besides your own, besides Getting Rich in the Deep End? Which I'm sure is your favorite, but what's another favorite?
No, man, I got plenty of favorite books. My favorite book I think ever is a book called The Goal. I don't know if you've ever heard of that book. It's a book about manufacturing process. Truly a life-changing book, which I'm sure if you're like, how is this, but go read The Goal. Fantastic book.
I read that in B school in a ops class. And yeah, that was 10 years ago, or more than that, but I can still remember some specific takeaways from it. It's a great one.
Love the book, the way they do, the way it's written, the way it's, just the way he shares it as a story. And it just really helps you see something. Like you learn so much when he's not necessarily telling you exactly how to do things.
Love that. I'm going to have to check it out. I'm behind you guys. So Brent, what's your most impactful piece of advice you've ever received?
I'm going to go with the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And that was, I heard it from Vern Harnish, who wrote the book Scaling Up, but it wasn't, I had him on my podcast and I quoted him on it, but he said that it wasn't his quote. And so I'm attributing it to him, but I'm taking it away at the same time. The main thing is keep the main thing the main thing.
There you go. Love it. So then in turn, what is something that you always tell your team, your client base? What's a favorite of yours that you pass along?
Help first. So, figure out what the issue is at hand and do whatever you can to help solve that problem and figure out the rest later. So a great customer service mindset, great sales mindset, great teamwork mindset, just help first.
I believe that is at the top of your core value stack, is it not?
Probably one of my favorite core values because it's so easy. Like just a guiding light of, when in doubt, like just help and then the rest of it will probably take care of itself.
Right. Brent, this has been really super. So how can folks get your book and maybe, get in touch with you guys and resource some of that?
Yeah, they can check out our website at UGurus.com. That's UGurus.com. Or they can search for my book, which is Get Rich in the Deep End on Amazon. You can get it as a Kindle or order it. I think the Kindle's like $2 or something like that. So if you do have an e-reader, that's a great option. You can always reach out to me at brent@ugurus.com.
Great. And we'll include all of that and a link to your book, which we would strongly encourage anyone in the marketing realm to pick up and dive into. Really great stuff. And the contact information for you in our show notes on bankmarketingshow.com. And we appreciate you. I know Dan and I both thoroughly enjoy working with you and your team. And thanks for delivering a whole bunch of value for our audience today, Brent.
Awesome. Well, thanks guys for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks for joining us. To go deeper or get access to some of the valuable nuggets from today's show, go to bankmarketingshow.com. There you'll find episodes, links to resources, and much more. Be sure to subscribe wherever you find your podcasts. And join us next time.